Everyone practices, everyone lifts, but on Friday night, who's still sharp in the fourth quarter? Who can sprint full speed in that last drive or lock down their man in the final play? That's where games are won, and that is where clutch athletes are made. Here's the truth though. It has nothing to do with luck. When you see these athletes coming in clutch at the end of the game, it has everything to do with how you prepare mentally, physically, emotionally, and nutritionally. If you want to peak every Friday night, your nutrition strategy can be the difference between being average or being the one coaches trust when it matters most. So if you don't want to be gassing out in the fourth quarter, if you don't want to be making mistakes when the game is on the line, then listen up today. Now, let's talk about the night before the game. Too many athletes think Friday night fueling means the Friday night dinner before the game. But if you want to get better grades, you don't show up to a test and cram the last 10 minutes, right? I know a lot of you guys do that, but if you wanted better grades, you know that you would not do that. Fueling is the same way. Carbs stored in the muscles as glycogen are what gives you explosive energy. It takes multiple meals to top that off. It's not just, oh, hey, I can eat 3 hours before the game and be fine, or oh, I can eat at lunchtime and a little snack after school and I'll be fine. Like, no, this is an ongoing process. You don't go to the gas. It's not like going to the gas station and just filling up your tank all at once. You need a lot of carbs. You need a lot of energy to store up so that you can perform throughout that entire game, not just the first half. So first off, key guideline for you, key rule for you is the 2 to 3 days leading up to game day are huge. You need to build each meal around carbs, lean protein, and healthy fats. So that could be rice or pasta bowls. That could be, chicken, potatoes, and veggies. It could be a lot of different things. But what you want to do, if you don't want to be feeling crappy on game day, if you don't want to be feeling sluggish and having an upset stomach on game day, we need to be limiting the greasy foods, the heavy foods, like a lot of those really like the fast food burgers, the fries, the fried food, anything that is going to slow down your digestion, anything that's going to make you feel heavy and just feel off. You want to be avoiding that, not just on game day. You want to be avoiding that the day before and the 2 days before game day if you want to feel your best. Now, hydration, just like with your food, is not something you just fill up all at once. You should be working on your hydration days before that game. So 2, 3 days before, you should be consistent with your water. If you're working out, which you probably are during your practices and such, you should still be taking electrolytes. Keep the hydration up so that on game day, you're not cramping, you're not crashing from just lack of water and lack of electrolytes. Key way to know that if you're getting enough water though is looking for a pale yellow, like kind of like a clear lemonade, or not clear lemonade, a pale lemonade. That's showing that you're more hydrated. If it's darker, looking more like apple juice, then you are behind on your hydration. And so I want to give an example here because there's another level to this. You might ask me, oh, what if it's clear? Clear pee could be a good sign that you are overhydrating. Not always, but it could be. So if you're drinking 2, 3 gallons a day of water, which by the way, one of my athletes was doing this. This is why I've got the specific example. And he's talking about still cramping, still feeling hydrated. It's because he's not holding onto that water. He's not getting enough electrolytes to make up for that. So we need to dial back. He does not need 3 gallons of water a day in the state of Washington, maybe in Florida or Georgia, and he needs electrolytes. And so, we were just having conversation via text, and that was the thing I was telling him. Like, we need to add some electrolytes. We need to dial back the water a little bit, and chances are he's going to feel a lot better with that. So, no, clear might be going too far. It's not always the case. But if you are overhydrating, that can lead to dizziness, that can lead to confusion. So yeah, if you've got clear pee, this is just a good sign, potential sign that you might be overhydrating. So you really got to be careful with that. You really got to make sure that you are not overdoing that. Now, just like film study, just like visualization, that doesn't just start on game day. That starts the days and the weeks before a game. Your fueling for Friday starts early in the week. You can't wait until 3 hours pre-game to prepare. Now, let's talk about game day. If you want to perform at a high level and you don't want to crash in the fourth quarter, then we need to be really intentional about game day. Now, there are specific numbers out there. You could find this on Gatorade site. You could find this on different websites, different research. They talk about 5 to 7 grams per kilo of body weight of carbs a day. Let's convert that to pounds. This isn't perfect math, but about 2.5 to 4 grams of carbs per pound of body weight, roughly. Just to do some math for you guys. If we're doing that for a 150-pound wide receiver DB, that is 375 to 600 grams of carbs a day, spread out across different meals. For a 250-pound lineman, that is 5 to 1,000 grams of spread across those meals. That's way more than most of you guys are probably doing. You don't have to overcomplicate this. It just means that you need to be eating good sources of carbs every meal, every snack. You want to keep that steady, especially if you're trying to avoid losing weight in season, which if you're losing weight in season, that's putting you at much higher risk for injury. So let's not. So let's maintain weight. Let's improve body composition, maybe. And chances are you will because of your training load. But let's maintain weight by making sure you're getting enough food in a day so that you can perform at a high level. Protein wise, your goal per day should be 1.2 to 2 grams per kilo of body weight, which again, back to converting that to pounds, that's about 0.5 to 0.9 grams per pound of body weight. So 0.5 for that 150 pound is 75 grams carbs. That's kind of on the low end of protein. On the high end, 0.9 grams per pound for a 150-pound athlete. It's about 130-ish. I'm not going to do that math right now, but you guys get the picture. I want to stress, though, you guys don't need to be doing all that math. I just emphasize, let's get a solid source of protein at each meal. Let's get a solid source of carb at each meal, each snack, including pre, including during, which we're going to talk about here in a sec. All right, so the day before, let's talk about dinner the day before. You should be carb loading. If you think about somebody like Sean Alexander, I still remember watching freaking Nickelodeon and seeing Sean Alexander on a commercial or whatever it was, talking about having this big plate of spaghetti the night before a game. He's got the carbs, he's got the protein, and he was able to perform at a pretty high level. This is pretty common. You're going to see this in any college or pro setting. You're going to see the emphasis on carbohydrates. So this could be chicken, rice, and veggies, pasta with chicken or turkey, maybe like baked potatoes with steak and salad. But what I want to emphasize is you want to make sure you eat something, again, that isn't going to upset your stomach. For me, steak just doesn't sit well, most of the time. So I'm probably not going to do steak when I've got to perform the next day. And then hydration. Again, hydration is not just on game day, it's the day before as well. Then we go to the next day. So we want steady fuel. We don't want spikes of energy and drops. We don't want just low energy. We want to have a good solid balance throughout the day. So for breakfast and lunch and maybe like a mid-morning snack, you want to focus on lean proteins, carbohydrates, easy to digest foods, not things that are going to upset your stomach, not things that are going to make you run to the bathroom. And then you want to keep more mild fat, like nothing too crazy, but focus more on the healthier fats. Things like the eggs, the avocados, healthier oils, etc. So just some examples: breakfast burritos, eggs with toast and some fruit in the morning, rice bowls, or turkey sandwiches with some sides at lunch. There's a lot of different ways you could be doing this, but making sure that you are preparing your gas tank, filling it up, getting ready for game day, getting ready for game time. Then you guys got Friday night lights. You guys got 7 p.m. Some of you, if you're C team or JV, maybe it's like 5 p.m. or 4 p.m., whatever. 3 to 4 hours pre-game. This is your last big meal. This is your last chance to fill that gas tank up. So again, moderate protein, lean protein, like the chicken, maybe salmon, or other fish, things like that. And then higher carb. The rices, I usually stick to rices because it's just lighter and easier versus potatoes. A little bit slower, a little bit could be harder, but depends on how that feels for you. And then just combining that with some veggies, some steamed veggies or whatever. Now, I've got lots more ideas on the team dinners. If you guys actually go to my website, the clutchperformancenutrition.fit, which you guys can find in the caption, I have a whole team dinners guide. So it has team dinners, ideas that could be made in bulk. So it could be made for a whole team, could be made the night before a game. And then there's ones for game day. But again, I want to stress you guys, think about the foods that are going to make you feel the best. Eddie may or may not be the best thing 3 to 4 hours before a game. If the acidity is too much, then it's probably not a good idea. Now, next step after the 3 to 4 hours is a 60 to 90 minute pregame snack. And for a lot of you guys, if you're JV or C team, then you guys are probably, this is going to be the meal that you have after lunch versus having the 3 to 4 hours one. In this case, you want to focus more on quicker digesting carbs, more of that faster energy. So bananas, pretzels, sports drinks, things like that. And some of those you could do 30 minutes before. A lot of my athletes, they'll do, bananas or sports drinks like 30 minutes before. And then an hour, 90 minutes before, they'll actually go for something a little bit heavier, like PB&Js, turkey sandwiches, Cliff Bars, things like that. You want to make sure that you are matching it to what you can handle. So if you think a sandwich would be too much, maybe try half sandwich. If you think half sandwich is too much, focus on the carbs, like the bananas, the oranges, things like that. But again, I emphasize, find what works for you, find what's going to give you sustained energy throughout the game without cramping, bloating, having to run to the bathroom. Hydration wise on game day, most football players who are going to be playing throughout that game need at least 100 ounces of water a day. You guys are training at a high level. You guys are performing at a high level. You guys need a lot of water. For those who are playing both sides of the ball, you need both, or you need more. You need 100 plus, maybe a gallon, maybe even more than that potentially. So ideally, if you think about that, game day is at 7, which means most of that water should already be consumed well before 7 p.m. How many of you guys have cramped mid-game? How many of you guys have cramped in the third and fourth quarters, or even in the first and second quarters? If you have, let's fix it. If you don't want to be cramping during the game, we need to be hydrating before the game. So 80 to 100 ounces at least before the game, throughout the day. This isn't just chugging water right before the game. This is taking in water at breakfast, at snack times or during the school day, at lunch, after school, and then pregame, like all throughout the day. If you break it down like that, drinking every couple hours, just like you're eating every few hours, it's going to be a lot easier to get that 80 to 100 ounces. Again, some of you guys might need more than that before the game. And then if you, what you can do is pregame, you can add some electrolytes. Add some electrolytes in that pregame snack. So as I mentioned, that 60 to 90 minutes, maybe even 30 minutes, you're getting in some electrolytes with some of those carbohydrates, with the sugar, so that you can fuel and so that you can reduce that cramping. And the electrolytes are going to kind of help hold on to that water. And the carbs are actually going to help the electrolytes absorb. So I don't want you taking in sugar-free electrolytes on game day. You want electrolytes that have sugar so that you can better absorb those electrolytes and better perform in that game. If you live in a hot or humid place, or you are playing in a hot or humid place, you might need more electrolytes than that. You might need electrolytes at lunch, maybe even at breakfast. You might need some more electrolytes. But for most of you, you probably don't need electrolytes except for pregame and maybe during the game. If you are an athlete prone to cramping, so I want to call out, I was watching a Sumner High School playoff game last year, and there was one of the linemen who I think he played both sides of the ball, and he came out of the game like 3 or 4 times cramping. How are you gonna get the stats that you want? How are you gonna get the playing time and really play at the high level that you want if you keep having to come out because of cramps? So to fix that, let's make sure that you maybe get some more electrolytes. If you're not drinking them before the game already, drink them before the game. If you're drinking them pre-game and you're still cramping, let's make sure you're drinking them during the game. If that's still not enough, then yeah, maybe we look at, hey, how can we add more electrolytes early in the day as well? A quick side note on electrolytes too. Prime and Body Armor are not sports drinks for game time. They do not have enough sodium to replenish all the sodium that you are losing in your sweat. So what you need to be focusing on is sodium first sports drinks. So that could be Gatorade, Powerade, or Pedialyte. They're not my favorites, but they at least check the box. They just don't have as good a quality. Could be a liquid IV. It'd be like second best there. Easy to access. So like if you don't want to buy something online, liquid IV is an option. But then above that, you've got Scotch Labs. You've got Drip Drop, which doesn't have as much sugar in it. So again, not as ideal for game time, but it could work. But yeah, ultimately you have many options, but I want sodium to be your number one electrolyte in your sports drinks. And then number 2 and 3 should be your potassium and your magnesium. So make sure that that is what you are doing if you want to avoid cramping. All 3 of those electrolytes can impact your likelihood to cramp, but we want to make sure like sodium's number 1, and then again, still checking the potassium, the magnesium. And a lot of those things you can get from foods is just a lot easier at game time to be making sure you're getting them through your drinks. Again, if you want to still be running full speed in the fourth quarter, the fuel you eat at noon, at 7 a.m., at 9 a.m., that all matters. It matters just as much as that warm up you guys have at 6:30. If you are not taking this seriously, you are going to cramp, you are going to crash, you are not going to perform as well as you could in the third and fourth quarters. But even pre-game fueling is not enough. For majority of football players, you guys need to be eating more than just pre-game, more than just breakfast and lunch, more than just the night before. You need to be taking something in at halftime. This is one of those key times to prevent cramping, to prevent crashing in the half. Why is that? Is because you just played two full quarters. You just played an hour, a couple hours already, and some of you played both sides of the ball. Some of you were running constantly. Some of you guys were basically doing strength training the entire freaking game because you're blocking guys the entire game. That's a lot of strain on the body. That's a lot of energy that you are expending. And so we want to make sure we're replacing the fueling. If you're sweating a lot, again, hydration. And so, it's not simply, oh, I'm crashing third and fourth quarter because I don't have conditioning. It's like, no, you're crashing because of your nutrition. So at halftime, what you need to be doing, don't just sit and sip on water. You need to refill that gas tank up. You need to get that glycogen back up. So get some small, quick carbs. Could be the orange slices that you've always seen. It could be energy bars like the Cliff bars and Kind Energy bars and things like that. Could be the sports drinks that have the sugars in it. Could be the gummies. Some of the gummies. It could heck, it could even be something like PB&Js or half PB&Js. Sumner High School, they won state last year, and one of their consistent things that has allowed them to play at a much higher level in the third and fourth quarters is half PB&Js at halftime. They've been doing it for a long time, and it's allowed them to play at a high level. So make sure that you are addressing that. Make sure that you are intentional about what you're doing at halftime. If just simple carbs is all you can handle, great, do that. If it's a half PB&J, great, eat it as soon as you can. As soon as you get into the locker room, pull out that half PB&J and eat it, so it has more time to digest before you go back on the field. But again, don't forget hydration. Don't forget electrolytes. Again, salt is your number one, potassium, magnesium. So that should be your priority. And if you want to try the Scratch Labs out, I know I just mentioned it a little bit ago. If you want to try it out, go to their site, scratchlabs.com, I believe, or Scratch Labs Hydration. You'll find it that way. And then they have the electrolytes on there. Choose, the ones with the sugar in it. And then you can use code Lemke, so my last name Lemke at discount for 20% off your order. Or say no to cramping and yes to performance. So why is halftime so crucial? Is most athletes are fading after halftime. And when you are fading, yes, you are not as focused. You are cramping, but also you are making poor decisions. If your brain does not have the energy it needs, you're going to make bad decisions. Yes, your mental performance might be related to your lack of confidence or whatever. Could also simply be just because you're freaking lacking glucose, you're lacking carbohydrates for your brain to function. So make sure you're getting those so that you can perform at a high level and make good decisions in after halftime even. So the guys who fuel at halftime are the ones still sprinting in the last 2 minutes, still running play after play after play in the end of the game so that they can play at a high level. These are the athletes who separate themselves. Now, clutch athletes don't leave performance a chance. They have strategy, not just with X's and O's or with the mental performance techniques like the breath work and the whatchamacallit, visualization. It's not even just about the pregame lifts. They have strategy around what they eat to perform at a high level for all four quarters. So make sure that you're not just addressing the game plans, watching the videos, watching or doing the mental performance techniques, doing the pregame lifts. Like, make sure that your eating matches the way that you want to perform. So if you want to perform sluggish and crash halfway through the game, then do what you want with your nutrition. If you want to play at a high level, though, then make sure you're taking your nutrition and your hydration seriously all day, the day before the game, and 2 days before the game. If you want to be the guy that coaches trust when the game's on the line, it starts with how you eat. Every bite, every sip, every choice builds the energy that you can cash in during those clutch moments. If you don't have the energy, It's going to be very difficult to cash in those clutch moments. It's going to be very difficult to be the athlete that coaches rely on. So make sure that you are intentional with that. Make sure that you are taking that nutrition seriously all throughout the day and the days before the game. So if you want to get a personalized nutrition plan so you don't fade when it matters most, so that you don't cramp and you don't crash in the third and fourth quarters, shoot me a message. Nick Lemke RD on socials. My links are in the show notes. We will build your game day meal plan so that you're not crashing, you're not cramping, and you're performing at the level that you want to perform at. This episode has been a blueprint for athletes trying to come in clutch on game day. If you want your whole team to come in clutch, if you want your whole team to perform at a high level, then make sure you share it with them. How can they get better if they don't know any better? So make sure you guys are sharing this. And to wrap up, as always, keep striving for greatness.